So hey guys, good morning. This is Heather Starks. I'm the Manager of Education and Outreach for Ilight in the Indiana Gigapop. Thanks for joining this morning. I appreciate everybody's attendance. So before we get started, we'll just do a quick couple announcements and housekeeping items. One, if you could do me a huge favor, like always, if you could just mute yourself on your end, just to allow less distraction for the presenter, that'd be great. Two, the session's going to be recorded, and after the conclusion of the session, I would guess maybe tomorrow I'll have the slide deck and the archive to the webinar on the Slack channel. So if you're not already a member of the Ilight and Gigapop Slack instance, please let me know. You can just shoot me a quick email or hit me up on the chat forum in the presentation today, and I can just add you really quickly. It's super easy. So we will host the presentation on Slack, and then it will be on the ilight.net site as well. So let me know if you have any issues downloading either the deck or the actual webinar. And then go ahead and interrupt. We keep this pretty laid back. So if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, do whatever you need to do. Give your question a shout out, or you can use the chat function and I can ask those questions. So just to my IDSolution friends, I'll monitor that and I'll let you know if a question comes up through that avenue. So I guess with that being said, we can go ahead. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I did forget to mention. I sent the slide deck this morning in the invite reminder. So if you have any issues, technical issues this morning, that deck is in the invitation, so you can access it through there. So if there aren't any questions, I think that we'll go ahead and hand it over to our friends at IDSolutions. I know that Mike DeCrane is with us, and he's the Regional Sales Executive with IDSolutions. So Mike, can you do me a quick favor before we get started? Can you do just a quick introduction of you and your team?
Yeah, sure thing. First of all, I want to thank, of course, Heather Starks and Ilight and Gigapop for allowing us to present today. And of course, for everybody else who's joining, much appreciated. As Heather mentioned, my name's Michael DeCrane. Been with IDS for about 10 years now. I do educational and some government sales, but more of an educational focus on just applications that comprise our ecosystem that we're going to touch on today. And I do most of the state K through 12 and higher education in the Midwest. And I'm here with Zach Cook, so I'll let you say hello, and then Tom.
Yep, Zach Cook here with IDSolutions. I head up the sales teams for our enterprise, government, and education groups. And I'm here to help Mike present, specifically when we get more into some of the managed services and the private cloud service offerings that we're starting to see. And we also have Tom Lewis on as well, and I'll let Tom introduce himself.
Yep, I'm Tom Lewis. I've been with IDSolutions for 10 years, and I'm the account manager for the East Coast, dealing with the main focus on education. I'm also doing commercial, and I can I'll give a little bit of information on the cloud-hosted Flame offering that we have once we get to that part of the presentation.
Great.
Thanks, Tom. And then I'll defer to Heather when you want to start, whether now or another minute or two.
No, I think that we're probably okay. It's 10:03. I think it's safe to go ahead and kick it off. So that being said.
Okay, sure thing. So this is Michael again. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Today, we wanted to introduce ourselves, just kind of give a brief background on the company, and then talk about what we like to call ecosystem of applications that are specifically tailored for higher education, university, and college. Global presence is more of our name for all the managed and the cloud video solutions. We're going to touch on that more in depth in a minute. Our goal today is to educate and to show some cloud solutions and just a lot of applications that we're starting to see more and more in education. So certainly we're not going to be being this slides verbatim. Once again, if everybody doesn't mind, if you could, just because I'm getting some feedback here. I think that's me coming back, right?
Yeah.
So about IDSolutions, our company was founded about 17 years ago in 2000. We are one of the best places to work in Indiana, which is important to us because, it really is a family here. We are probably about almost 100 people now. We've definitely grown in size since I've come on board. So that means everything. Turnover is not very high. A couple of years back, we went to what we call more of a dedicated sales focus. So we have four main verticals, what we would call healthcare, corporate, education, and government. Obviously, today's focus is education. The thing with that is some of the underlying technology, whether it's video conferencing, video streaming, or just the basic custom audio video integration, a lot of that's going to remain the same, but the specific applications that surround that ecosystem are going to change. So healthcare might be interested in remote billing, virtual waiting rooms, and that type of thing. Education, of course, a lot of times is going to be very interested in like learning management software and those types of applications that we'll touch on in a minute. Some of the differentiations that we have is a couple years back, probably 5-6 years ago, and even more and more today, like as a much higher percentage, we see video as a service. So that's what we're going to talk about today with global presence, and then our Internet 2 on the Net Plus contract offering called Flame. Some of the other things that differentiate ourselves that we think is that we are vendor agnostic, but that doesn't mean we just sell a bunch of hardware and stuff to our customer. So we really like to talk to them, have a consultative approach, and find out what the pain points are and really build a solution that works for them, that really integrates tightly with their workflow. So it doesn't matter which vertical it is, but we just want to find out kind of how the internal processes are and then basically build around that. A couple of years back, we added, what is it, Zach, 3 or 4 full-time kind of coders or programmers?
Yes, API programmers, yes.
So we have API programmers that are on staff. They've had a lot of interest with schools across the country in integrating with LMS. So our goal is to prevent silos of technology and just have like a more comprehensive ecosystem with single sign-on where everything kind of just works together. And we'll get more in depth in that in a minute. We do have a video help desk that's fully staffed with industry certified technicians and engineers. Thinking we have anytime 12 to 15 of those guys and gals.
Yeah.
And they go 8 to 8 Monday through Friday, like every week. We do have training services as well. It's not as much on the university college side, but we still see some grant writing and applications. I know Tom's working on a couple in the Northeast. So those are options, right? Whether it's a collaboration with K through 12 or especially in rural areas, there's a lot of opportunities for grants. So if anybody's interested in more specifics, feel free to reach out to our team and we can certainly chat with you. So that's it in a nutshell of just what we think differentiates IDSolutions over, I guess the competition, if you will. So when we talk about ecosystem, this is what we kind of drill down for education and college, university. It's kind of a 4-pronged approach, but again, everything needs to kind of fit together and just like work as best as it can with a single sign-on. So the content and creation would just be, existing videos that a school has, stuff that's available widely on the internet, whether it's YouTube or just anywhere, Discover Education, a couple other examples up there. That's one of the quadrants. Video conferencing, of course, everybody probably knows about like Cisco, Polycom are 2 of the big players. Video with a Y, VIDYO is another life size. And then, of course, you have like the desktop ones like Zoom and Adobe Connect and those types. Media management would be more, how do you manage and monitor the popularity, for example, of all the content that you created? So maybe as a teacher or instructor, I record like a pre-recorded lesson plan. I sync it up with my slides, but then like, how do I put that into my LMS? How do I like maintain that and manage it? How do I credential that? That's what the companies on that list would deal with. So that's Discover Video, like Kaltura, Panopto, vBrick. Some of you might have heard of some of those. The control side would just be, in this conference room that Zach and I are in today, we have a Polycom setup that we're connecting into Heather's Zoom room via the bridge from Zoom. And we have like little touch panel. So some of those panels are included with a video conference, but then of course you have the big players like AMX and Crestron. So the goal would be just to have like a couple of clicks of a button and you're off to the races with the meeting. Zach, what did you say? There was that one company that you could come in and schedule some of the assets on your actual touch panel when you walk in. I know you guys are working on some of that.
Oh, with the Spice?
Yeah, just so you walk in and the room's already booked out for you and you can just literally press start the meeting.
Yeah, so there's different tools we can tie into different APIs, and we have different partners that can do that. So you can actually set it up to where you walk in and the call's already set up and integrated for you through whatever your workflow model is, be that Microsoft or whatever your platform, so that all these tools are scheduled and tied together, and you simply walk into a room or from your PC, you launch the call through whatever your UC platform tools are. So yeah, we do some of that API integration.
Perfect, thanks. And then, of course, the core, what we see almost every single time, and rightfully so, within higher education is LMS, right? So historically, what we've seen, at least what I've seen anecdotally, I think Tom and Zach would agree, Blackboard was kind of the stalwart in the room that's been around for several years, and we see more and more schools just going to Canvas. So Canvas is, at least in my opinion, been really popular. We don't sell any of the LMS, but with our API programmers that we have on staff, we have worked with both Canvas, and we're starting to work more with Zoom on like integrating some of those media management and video streaming solutions we had mentioned, what we would call asynchronous communication, just one to many, and then of course video conferencing as well. So the goal would be just to, for example, to have a dashboard on the LMS, and then you would drill down the student or the teacher, for example, to their class for that particular semester or whatever. And then you'd be able to see like which one of your classmates or teachers are available to chat in a video room. So for example, I went to IUPUI, Kelley School of Business for my MBA. Wish we had some of these tools like 5 or 6 years ago. They're starting to become more popular. So instead of having to meet in person every single time, especially on these group projects or whatever on the weekends, we could just be like, hey, get onto the LMS, let's join my room, this whatever Saturday morning at 10. So we see that more and more. So as much as you can dream it, I mean, with all the technologies out there, there's ways to kind of tightly integrate everything together. And to touch on this briefly, just with video user profiles, we see probably one of 3 primary levels that we interface with. So IT divisions are always going to be one. Sometimes the demand or the interest comes from them. They a lot of times work, of course, with the media specialists and curriculum developers. We always see some demand coming from, the administrative level. So whether that's the president or the chancellor, the college board, the regents or whatever it might be, we see interest coming from them. And then of course, from the instructor, professor, we see interest coming from them as well. So these are some of the stakeholders that we come across the most just in our, sales process and just getting out there. The next few slides, I just want to touch on a couple of what we call applications that comprise the ecosystem. Of course, we're all on the Zoom meeting now that Heather sent out virtually. So that's an example of mobile video conferencing. What we see with that a lot, professors do want to have open office hours. So say, and that's similar to that example of the group meeting on Saturday, a professor instructor could be like, all right, we got a test on Thursday. Wednesday night, I'll be available in my virtual room for office hours from say like 5 to 7. So students at home or from school or whatever can just kind of click in and pop in, share content back and forth and say, hey, on this homework or whatever on number 5, I didn't understand how you made that transition with those equations or whatever. So that's a popular one. Of course, those ad hoc breakout sessions we had mentioned with students doing group work. And then, of course, just your basic meetings, right? There's always going to be a need to have plans and ad hoc meetings. And you're going to want to have a lot of times like these traditional room-based video conferencing system, like I had mentioned, Zach and I are in Polycom, being able to also interface with whether it's Zoom or video or one of these desktop solutions. So we have several of those scenarios on the call right here today. And of course, traveling students could pop into. Video distribution, those are the companies we mentioned like, a Kaltura, Panopto, Discover Video. A lot of people want to use stream live events, whether it's graduation, sporting events, that kind of thing. You'd be surprised, it's probably more at the K-12 level, but how much interest there still is in turning VHS tapes and even DVDs into digital assets. Those are still things we can do. And then just making, importing and curating content, for example, from YouTube or just anywhere on the internet. So to be able to take maybe a YouTube video, maybe it's a foreign language class or something, but maybe the key point is only from minutes 5 to 15. So be able to clip that, make bookmarks, notes, annotations. That's another application that we see a lot. The narrated presentation, that's more of a, probably the most popular application would be just like a pre-recorded lesson plan. So I think way back, 5, 6, 7 years ago with Indiana University, they used to call it Breeze sessions or something like that. It's basically just syncing up your content or your lesson plan to your video. So you can kick off the lesson plan with like full screen introduction, go into like your content, you would still have like the talking head in the corner. With that, they can import it into the system, interface with the LMS system, the learning management software. And then a lot of these companies, specifically Discover Video, have a way to actually insert questions into a pre-recorded lesson plan, or any video for that matter. So they can put a timer on it, say you have to 24 hours to do this assignment, and then the actual video will stop at key points with questions that you insert, grade those and send them back to the LMS system. to the instructor's admin rates. So just another way to do virtual graded assignments. Team collaboration, we touched on that, just like those group sessions, those breakout sessions. Definitely this desktop video, Zoom video works. And I kind of touched on it earlier, guys, but IDSolutions, we are vendor agnostic. There's certainly vendors that we like to work with more than others, but for higher education, we definitely see a lot of the ones that we had mentioned, such as like video and Zoom. The lecture capture, that would be actually doing a recording of the actual physical in-person lecture. We see that sometimes, but more the pre-recorded lesson plans are more popular. And then, so those are the broad brushstroke applications. I'll pause. We'll do questions at the end, but does anybody have anything that's pressing right now?
Again, feel free to use the chat functionality, and I can let Mike know that you have a question.
Okay, so we'll move on. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. I'll slow down a bit. I'm going to get into global presence, which is our latest improvements. I would say it's like an improvement refinement on probably, 7, 8 years of design. And I'm going to hand this off to Zach, but I know his team with the programmers have been working on a lot of these applications quite a bit. Yeah, more and more recently.
So thanks, Mike. So part of what we did when we started looking at managed services was tying a lot of what Mike was going through, different tools, different applications, with different types of markets. And how do we tie these things together so that they work together more in a service model? They're integrated together as part of a workflow. And so we started building this model around what we called global presence, which is a managed service. Because at the time we realized years ago in the industry that the legacy model was starting to fall apart. That model at the time, you still see this to a certain extent today, with large organizations being required to purchase and own the infrastructure, the back-end components that make all this stuff sing and dance and work together. And that was expensive. That's not an inexpensive, capital purchase. You've got to buy it. They were complicated to design. You had to have design engineers, and some organizations actually charged even to do the design work because of the amount of labor that would go into it. And then as soon as you got everything paid for, then there was the maintenance, the ongoing costs of that. And then your staffing requirements, even on top of that, just to be able to maintain and manage this environment. And we realized that was a problem. Now, of course, the solution that everybody started moving to, BlueJeans was one of the first to jump into this. Certainly Zoom and some others followed suit, was, well, then let's put everything out into the cloud. Right, we'll build the infrastructure in data centers around the country, around the globe, and we'll do a multi-tenant model where everybody connects to that. And that worked pretty well. Companies like BlueJeans, Zoom, Pexip, some others really took advantage of that. And we did some of this as well, where we were a cloud-based service. And that works fine if you're a smaller organization with traffic going out to the cloud, right? All of my video traffic internally is going external, and all of my people that are out on the public internet from home traveling, we all connect out in the cloud. However, that wasn't the solution for everyone, because what we saw happen is as the adoption grew and more people began using this within the organizations, you ended up with a pretty hefty amount of traffic going out over the public internet. And that created other challenges. Bandwidth, security, just flow and control, management and monitoring capabilities. This, for a larger organization, this became more and more of a problem. It was great that they didn't have the infrastructure investment. They don't have to manage and monitor and maintain this stuff themselves, but it wasn't the best solution for larger, especially in the enterprise space, larger organizations. So what we realized was, okay, everybody wants to move to the cloud, but it's not necessarily because they're wanting the traffic to go out over the public internet. What they want is somebody else to manage, monitor, and maintain this equipment. They want it to be somebody else's problem, someone else's investment. They just want to leverage the service, but not necessarily have all that traffic go public. So what we built was more of a private cloud or a hybrid cloud model, where we manage everything from the cloud, but we drop the licenses, instead of being in our data center, we drop them within the client network. And that way, the client gets the best of both worlds, right? So it's still managed. We still manage, monitor, maintain everything. It's our equipment. It's our licenses. It's our responsibility. But the client gets the advantage of having that traffic stay local inside their local area networks, their wide area networks, where you get quality of service and all the other benefits, more secure, more control, and allowed for other applications and other tools like firewall traversal, gatekeeper, those types sort of functions. So the only time anybody has to cross the firewall to go out over the public is if you're connecting out to somebody external, a partner, a vendor, or somebody who's working from home or traveling. And that's really what we built this model around, was a private hybrid cloud. And we believe this is still sort of the direction of the market. That the cloud, with all its promises and all its cost saving, very valuable. But for larger organizations, they still need to have that traffic set up internally. And while it may not impact in the education space as much, certainly when we get into the larger enterprise, where you have global organizations, this becomes critical, because bandwidth overseas is not inexpensive, and it is a real value. So they want to maximize that as best they can. So that's really kind of where we've gone with this model, be it for video conferencing, video bridging, streaming, or any of the other applications Mike talks about, is tying this back within an organization but managing it from the cloud. And that's really where we've had most of our success. As part of that, once we get into that, we can also then deploy this globally for an organization by dropping licenses, not just within one of their data centers, but we can drop them in multiple data centers that they may have around the globe. That follow the sun approach to the licensing and using a concurrent model versus a named user model allows this to scale rapidly, because you're not naming and specifying who specifically could use it. It's more like video dial tone. You put it out there and any number of people can use it. You're only paying for the utilization that you're actually using. And then we can segment that traffic geographically based upon where those licenses are located. So it has a lot of flexibility in how we deploy this. An example of what we've done, and I'll let Tom talk more about this, in the education space, is our Flame offering. The Flame is an exact replica of this, where we are managing everything from the cloud, but actually deploying it and the licenses onto the backbone of the internet too. Tom, I'll let you take it from here.
Yep. Hello, everyone. So a few organizations that currently take advantage of the Flame offering are Ocean, is a consortium out of Rhode Island. NJED is another consortium out of New Jersey. Both of these organizations consist of hundreds of members from libraries, community organizations, state and local government, healthcare, higher ed, and even K-12. And what they do is offer this cloud-based solution, and it's allowed to be hybrid. So if some organizations would like some of the equipment on site to keep that traffic local, that option is available. A couple educational facilities using this. Arizona State University takes advantage of this, as well as Emory. And they both have thousands of users using this, both for video communication and collaboration among their students and teachers. Another big organization that we just picked up is actually the Smithsonian Institute, who is actually the world's largest museum and education research complex. They have over 2,000 named users taking advantage of this situation or solution throughout their whole organization for virtual field trips, collaboration amongst their members. They're actually able to offer this as a service if you wanted to offer it to other members, like basically brand it as something of your own, and then you can offer it to your members. So if anyone out there has, like, say, additional, I know I can talk about these deployments for hours, but I say if anyone out there has additional questions, needs additional information, my contact information will be included in this presentation. You can reach out to me at any time with questions. Thank you.
So that's a good example, Tom, of how we've deployed this specifically within education, where we're still managing from the cloud, but in this case, this is a video conferencing application. The service is located on the backbone, but even within that, we're able to localize the traffic within each member that's signed up for it. And that's kind of how we tie this in to the rest of what we're doing. So it's cloud-based, but it's an on-prem private cloud model that works well in the education market. And that's, I mean, this is a great example of what we're doing elsewhere, healthcare, enterprise, government as well.
Right. So the best part is, like I say, we manage the equipment. We're responsible for the maintenance. We're responsible for all the upgrades. We're still available should you have questions, concerns, needs. Our help center is always available. We provide training videos. We provide on-site training. So it's the whole gamut that we can provide to get you and your team up and running.
All right. Thanks for that, Tom, Zach. We talked a lot about applications, guys. One thing that we wanted to kind of touch on that's really become popular both at the educational space, and we see it a lot in government too, is this particular Newline interactive touch monitor. So what this is it comes in 3 varieties at this point. It's got a 55, 70, and 84-inch model. You can think of this as a giant kind of Android tablet, if you will. It has an onboard PC that kind of like plugs into the back. It can be maintained and administered just as another PC on the IT network. You can see some of the features on the side there on the actual picture. But the top has a microphone array with, I think, up to 16 microphones with beamforming technology. It's got a high-definition camera integrated both at the top, middle, and the bottom. And then, again, any application, because it's PC-based, you can do right from this particular panel. So what that means is that a lot of schools are like using this as a way to connect, say, like a remote lecturer or students that might not be able to attend class from the classroom. And what our team has done is we're pretty close to launching, having these prepackaged with either a Zoom or a video license or whatever your preference is. And then some of the monitoring and what else you guys have going?
So what Mike's talking about is part of, now that we've got the managed service infrastructure in place, now we're looking to reach further into the actual on-prem equipment. And of course, what's been driving a lot of the discussion around these types of devices are the need for huddle spaces and multimedia rooms, not just a video conferencing room. And so by tying in an interactive board that has the onboard PC, right? It's a giant tablet, if you will, computer that's touchscreen, so I can use it for local presentations. I can walk up and do all the magic you can do on an interactive board. But I can also use it for my audio conferencing, and I can use it for video conferencing. And the apps like Zoom, for example, would be tied back directly into our managed service. And then on top of that, we can still manage and monitor these devices. So as people are using them for whatever application is, we'll be pulling reports from that. If there are alarms or issues, or someone needs support, they can touch a button. We actually, we get that those alarms, those alerts, those requests for support. So the idea is this is an all-in-one system that can easily be mounted, supported, mobile. And that's kind of where we go with this. So it was our first attempt to get more into the huddle space in this interactive multimedia tool. And because it's an onboard, it's got the PC built into it, we can run apps like Zoom, like Skype, like video, whatever the app is, built it in and tie it back to our service. So we're getting ready we're doing some final testing on this. Hopefully things go well, launch by the end of the year. And this is one of the things we wanted to bring up and just get some feedback from the attendees as to input on these types of boards, these types of applications. Where are you seeing a need for this in education? How are they being used if you have these sort of things today? We'd like to hear some of that and just get some market input.
So, yeah, and these can, we see a lot of interest in these as well as kind of like training applications. So a lot of feedback is like, we didn't even know we needed something like this until we had it. So historically, we've seen a lot of like smart boards with those short throw projectors. This just really is almost like video conferencing, but all the other applications with whiteboarding and with touch screen, being able to record whatever's happening on the screen, all from one location. So we're not going to be able to get into like specifics super in depth today, but we certainly would encourage everybody. We do have our contact information at the end of the presentation here to please reach out to our team, and we'd be happy to jump on with the Newline folks and just kind of show you, 20-minute kind of remote demo that we can set up. It plays really well, and we'd love to set that up for you guys. So that's definitely something. Oh, and this one too, it has so many different inputs and outputs, USB devices. You could have like wireless keyboards. like remote desktop sharing, additional cameras, as much as you could imagine. So definitely a good option that's out there now that's really taken the historical touchboards, whiteboards to the next level, and then still is relevant with the service. So this is our map of all of our account managers, and then of course Zach Cook. We do have the three of us listed right here as well, so please feel free to reach out to any one of the three of us. Before I open it up to questions, I just really would like to emphasize that this is probably for me the key slide. Just the overall ecosystem with all the applications that can be offered as hardware or as a service in the cloud that's remotely monitored and maintained, and then you would still have access to our video help desk 8 to 8. So any application that you see in there, we'd be happy to discuss it in more detail and even come on site if it makes sense. With that said, I'd certainly like to thank everybody again and open it up for any questions that are out there.
Feel free to use the chat functionality or just give your questions a shout out. And again, I just want to reiterate, Tom and Zach and Michael, their contact information is on the last slide, but if you want to utilize me as a conduit for the introduction or getting a call together or a meeting on site, just shoot me a quick note or give me a shout and we can help you get that set up.
Anybody at all? Stunned silence.
I don't have anything in the chat window.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you guys are like me and if after the conclusion of the webinar, you're like, oh man, I forgot to ask this question or I have this question now, feel free to shoot those to me or you can send them to Michael, Tom, or Zach and they can get you an answer. So I want to thank Michael, Tom, and Zach for presenting today. I think the content was great and I really appreciate your time. And everybody, I want to thank you for your continued interest in the webinar series that we're putting on each Wednesday, or I guess it's like the second Wednesday of each month is when we actually conduct these. So thanks for your continued interest in that, and we look forward to the next meeting. All right.
Would certainly love to hear back from you guys. Any feedback or questions, please feel free to reach out. We're located right here in central Indiana, so love to have a discussion and just further the discussion in general.
Great.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.